Okay, we're on that for Samacham and Beis and about 10 lines up, Rabbi Chanina. So we are talking about the Machlokes yesterday of which things are Ma'akev. If you didn't do it or you didn't do the right order, Rabbi Nechemi said anything done in the Big Day Love, anything done in the white clothing, even if it's outside of the Kodesh HaKadoshim, it's in the courtyard, also it's Ma'akev, with the exception of Shivayim, Shvicha Shivayim maybe. And Rabbi said that only things in the Kodesh HaKadoshim are Ma'akev. Only whatever was done, the five lefnim. So now the Gemara starts, Rabbi Chanina. If the Kohen Gadol would have done the chafina. Chafina means even cupping the Ketores into his hands. That's done outside. Before he slaughtered the bull, it's puzzle. So just to recall, the order is supposed to be that he does vidui on the par, and then it happens to be he does also hagrola on the goats, and he goes back to do the second vidui on the par. Then he shechs the par, somebody's stirring the blood, and then he does the ketores. Then he does chafinas ketores, and he goes into the Kodesh HaKadoshim to put the ketores. Then he comes out, takes the blood, and does the matanos. Then he sprinkles the blood in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. So the order is supposed to be that he slaughters the bull before he does the Ketores, which is very interesting in itself, that the way L'Chatchila, the Torah says he's supposed to do it, here the Gemara is going to say, even with the Yevid, you must do it, that he slaughters the bull, and then he puts it on pour. Someone even has to stir the blood in order that it shouldn't congeal, and then he does the Ketores. Very interesting to understand why it should be that way. Maybe first get the Ketores ready, and then you do the par. No, you have to slaughter the par, and then while it's slaughtered and someone's stirring the blood, so then he does the whole Ketores. Here the Gemara says, even with the Yevid, it's Ma'akev. Even not the actual Ketores, even if he just was chofein, the Ketores shechofna, he put it into his hands before he shechted the bull, it's possible. Which goes into the machlokes of Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Nechemiah. Rabbi Nechemiah says, sits down the white clothing, even though it's outside, so it's ma'akev. So we understand that it's ma'akev. They say this ma'akev. He did number 2 before number 1. He did the Ketores shechofna before the bull. But Rabbi Yehuda would have said that since it's not the Kodesh HaKadoshim, so it's not a problem. So that's the Gemara jumps up. Command the Rabbi Yehuda. This statement of Rabbi Chanina seems to be against Rabbi Yehuda. The Rabbi Yehuda, Amar kiksiva chukah b'dvar manasim b'videi lovim rifnim. Rabbi Yehuda says the only thing that's market where it says chukah is only when it's in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. This is not in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. The chafinas ketores is done outside. So why is the say there ma'akev? It must be Rabbi Nechemiah is talking. The Gemara says no. I feel that Rabbi Yehuda sarach pnim kibifnim dami. Since the chafinas ketores, it's true that it's done outside, but it's done for the purpose of the ketores inside. That's also considered avoda which is done inside. Rashi told us right away this yesterday. I'm not sure why Rashi saw it important. The Gemara didn't know it yet, but Rashi told us yesterday in the first, second wide line, Rashi quoted the Gemara that we're learning now, that even according to Rabbi Yehuda, things that are done outside are kosher if he did the wrong order. Rashi says like Hagrola, Vidoy, Shvicha Shirayim, and things in the Paroches and the Mizbech Hazov. Rashi himself points out right away, our Gemara, that's something which is done inside for the purpose of outside, for the purpose of inside, like this case of Chafina Secretaris also, Rabbi holds that the order is ma'akev. So we agree. Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Nechemiah, everybody comes to this point. If someone would have, if the Kohen Gadol would have done the Chafina Secretaris before he slaughtered the bull, so it's possible. The Gemara is a kasha from our Mishnah, 3 lines up, Tanan. The Mishnah said the example of doing things out of order would be if inside the Kodesh HaKadoshim, it spilled. Oh, I'm sorry, this is not the case of the order. This is the sefer of our Mishnah, where it says that if it's spilled out, so he has to bring blood again. He didn't. This is the machlokes, right? If he continues, or he starts again. Here it says that he has to get other blood. Everyone else has to get other blood. The blood spilled out. The question was, does he took the blood of the bull inside, but it's spilled, and he's another bull. So if he's going to slaughter again another bull, so then it comes out the Ketores was done before the bull. The first bull is puzzled now; it's very spilled out. So there's a technical problem now. It's true that he has to slaughter another bull, but then he has to do Ketores again also. The Ketores also doesn't count because the Ketores was brought, and he was brought inside. It wasn't on the Chefinas Ketores; it was brought inside. That's all he's marking, and then he's going to slaughter the bull. It's out of order. Then me if your order is marking, it's not enough just to do the bull. You have to slaughter the bull and then tell somebody to stir it, and then do Ketores again. The Ketores that's burning inside the Kodesh HaKodashim, you have to take it out. That's all not good. And you'd have to do Chafinas Ketores again. So the Gemara says you're right, that's what it means. It doesn't say so, but it's not. It isn't going to all the details. The Gemara says on the top line, Ketores Lokomari. It isn't talking about that because it just tells you that you need a new bull, but figure it out on your own. That if you need a new bull, so then you'd have to do Ketores again also. So the Gemara, yes, please.
When Rabbi Yehuda says Sorek Panim Kupanim Dami, does Kupanim mean a chelik of the process or a necessary hakdama, a prerequisite?
I don't hear the Tutz. He says that the din that I said that it's ma'akiv if it's inside, even if it's not done inside. If it's Sorek Panim, it also has that halacha that it has to be done in the right order. I'm not sure which side I'm taking, but the boys mean that just like I said, Panim, that's when it's ma'akiv, the order. So something which is done outside, but Sorek Panim also is considered Panim, that it has the same halacha that the order is ma'akiv. Maybe you can tell me later on, but what the Tutz are. The Gemara continues with another similar halacha. Amar Ula, top line. In the Kodesh HaKodashim, let's say that let's say that Kodesh HaKodashim, that he brings the blood of the bull, then he goes outside and then slaughters the goat which is Sorry Lashem, he had already done Agrola, and then he brings the blood of the goat into the Kodesh HaKodashim and sprinkles over there also. Here it says that if he would have slaughtered this goat before he had sprinkled the blood of the bull, also loss of a lokum. That's the order. The order has to be here again. You have the same point. The Gemara doesn't speak it out. Some do have a guess right here that it is a telling of Nehemiah because this is done outside. The slaughtering of the goat is done outside. Rabbi Nehemiah will say that the order is ma'akev. But Rabbi Yehuda, will he say the order is ma'akev? It's outside, and the answer is the same thing, that the tzorach pnim kipnim. So slaughtering the goat is for the necessity of the blood which is brought inside. So even Rabbi Yehuda is going to agree that the order is ma'akev. Rabbi Yochanan points this out, that the whole Gemara you have over here also, that it's a command to look Rabbi Yehuda, Afil Tem Rabbi Yehuda, the same thing, that the Chiddush that the Gemara said before, Yehuda is also asking that the order is ma'akev. So again, the order is supposed to be that first he sprinkles the blood of the bull and then he goes outside to shecht the goat and bring his blood in. If he did the order wrong and he shechted the goat, even if he didn't put the blood of the goat first, he shechted the goat first, also it's ma'akev. He has to first place sprinkle the blood of the bull and then to slaughter the goat. The Gemara says, third line, Hiktim Sar Damasor Damapar, Yasav Yazami Damasor, Rakadamapar. The Mishnah says if he did the wrong order, he sprinkled the blood of the goat. Obviously, if he sprinkled the blood of the goat, obviously he slaughtered it. So he says he sprinkled the blood of the goat, and then before the blood of the bull, he has to once again sprinkle the blood of the goat after the bull. But that's not good enough. It's much like he takes the same blood and he just sprinkles it again. But if he sprinkled the blood, that means that he had shechted it. If he shechted it first, already it's possible. Forget about sprinkling it. If he shechted the goat before he sprinkled the blood of the bull, it's already possible. But Misa, if you're right, that if we even shechted before the matan damashal par is possible, Yachsav Yishchotim boile, he should have said not only sprinkle again, get another goat. The goat that you did is not good. And here the Gemara can't say it's not talking about it. It is talking about it. It says sprinkle again from the blood. Yachsav Yazam midam asor. That sounds like he's doing the same blood. The answer is take ma'ula b'matana shebaychol. You're right. If it would have been in the Kodesh HaKodashim and he sprinkled the blood of the goat first, that means that he shechted the goat before he did the matan dam of the part. That would have been possible right away, and he has to shecht another goat. The issue is talking about the hechel. So the hechel means that he already had done the order right. In the Kodesh HaKodashim, first he sprinkled the blood of the bull, then he shechted the goat, and he did the blood of the goat of there also. Then he came out into the hechel, and he's supposed to first do the blood of the bull. He did the blood of the goat first. Just to point out, that's the scenario that Rabbi Yehuda was worried about. Rabbi Yehuda said that if he has two stands over there, two kanim, he'll put down, he has already the blood of the bull, and he's going to put down the blood of the goat, and then he's going to get mixed up, take the blood of the goat again. He just put it down, he'll take the same one again. That's what happened over here. Rabbi Yehuda said, I told you so. You have only one kan because he gets mixed up. But this is the case that the Brayso is talking about, that he did in the Kodesh HaKodashim, he did the right order, but then in the Hechel, he did the wrong order, and that's what it says. So to do the blood of the goat again. Here, there's no problem with the slaughtering of the goat because the slaughtering of the goat was done in the right order. He did the slaughter, he did the mazah, the sprinkling of the blood he did in the Kodesh HaKodashim of the bull, then he slaughtered the goat, and then he did the goat. Everything was fine. But then if he would have slaughtered the goat first, then the goat would be possible. So that's the end of that Gemara. The scenario would only be applying in the Hechel because he slaughtered it in the right time. But if he would have slaughtered it first before the matanas of the bull, then it would have been possible and have to shecht another goat. That Gemara is over. And just to summarize it, that even Rabbi Yehuda, who says that it's ma'akev only the order of things that are done in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, not because it's done in Big Day Lavan. Even if it's done in Big Day Lavan, if it's not in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, it's not ma'akev. But here the Gemara says tzorach pnim kipnim, that if it's the chafin of the Ketores or the shechita of the bull of the goat, also even though it's outside, also the seder is ma'akev. The Mishnah continued b'chein b'heichel b'chein b'mizbeach. Over there, it's talking about the Mishnah spoke about the three series of sprinkling of the blood. You have in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, then you have in the heichel, then you have on the mizbeach HaKetores. And the machlokes was if it's spilled out in middle of one of the avodas, then you go back to the beginning of that sidra, or do you just continue where you left off? And even if you go back to the beginning, you don't go back to the beginning of the beginning, just the beginning of that seder. If you're in the heichel, just go back to the beginning of the heichel. You don't have to go back to the Kodesh HaKadoshim. The Gemara is going to come into this. The Gemara is going to get to this point, but we're zocha to a bonus over here. All this is a bonus that is not our subject at all. The Brisa about 10, 15 lines, about 15 lines now. There's going to be a drasha on the pasuk, which we're going to darshan soon. It's going to be the drasha for our subject. But first, we got a bonus over here that talks about the pasuk, not about our subject. Just to put on the pasuk for a second, the Gemara is going to bring the pasuk, but maybe it's easier to see it. This is it. This is the pasuk as a whole. This is in by Yom Kippur. V'chiper es mikdash hakodesh. I'm sorry, everybody. I'm sorry, not getting clear. V'chiper es mikdash hakodesh. V'esol moed v'es mezbeach yichaper. Ba'al hakohanim ba'al kalam v'kol yichaper. The Kohen, after it says the whole avodah, it says that he should atone for the Kodesh HaKadoshim and the moed and the mezbeach, and on the Kohanim and the whole people, he should atone. A very simple pasuk, seemingly, but the Gemara is going to ask each thing. And the Gemara is going to say the Kodesh HaKadoshim, Ol Moed is the Ol Moed, Mizbeach, and then it's going to say something about the end of the pasuk where it says that he's going to atone on the Kohanim and on all the people. So we'll see the Gemara now. Tanu Rabbanan, V'chiper Mitish HaKodesh, Zel Lefnai V'Lefnim. That's the Kodesh HaKadoshim. That's good, simple. Ol Moed, Zel Heichel, the also very simple. That's the Heichel. Mizbeach, Mashmo, L'chorah means the Mizbeach HaKetores. That's what he does over there. He mixes the bloods and then puts it on the four corners and on the roof. Yichaper, Elu Azoros. This we didn't have yet. That it says that also is also atoning for the courtyard. That doesn't say, not that he does any kind of sprinkling. That someone told me maybe it means the Shvich HaShirayim, maybe the fact that he pours the blood on the outside of his Mizbeach, maybe that's also a kind of a kapara for the Azorah. So he's purifying the Averis that were done in the Kodesh HaKadoshim and in the Heichal, in the Mizbeach HaKetores outside. Then the pasuk says, "Vala kohanim, val kolam, kol yichaper." Kohanim, Hashmo. That's Kohanim. Amakol Eli Yisrael. Yichaper Elu Levim. Interesting that the Levim not included in Yisrael or the Kohanim. They're considered a set. So it says a pasuk with a remez, a drash for the Kohanim, Levim, Yisraelim, and then it says Yichaper. Pushvu kulan l'chapar achas. They're all included in one atonement. Shekulan miskapri v'sar mishtalech v'shav beres. So the Kohanim, we know that the Kohanim get a certain kapara that's specialized for them. When the Kohen Gadol brings the bull, so it says as we say that the Kohen Gadol says that the Kohanim also get a kapara different than the Yisraelim they get with the bull. But now Rabbi Yehuda says, but as far as the Sar Mishtaleach, they also need the Sar Mishtaleach. Means the Sar Mishtaleach, which is the sins of Am Yisrael, Chatu Avu Pasha Amcha Beis Yisrael, does that include the Kohanim also? So Rabbi Yehuda says yes, even though the Kohanim get a kapara from the bull, but that's only for the issue of Tumah. The issue of Tumah that happened in the Kodesh HaKadoshim or in the Heichel, that the Kohanim are getting with the bull. But they also need the Sar Mishtaleach that's sent out into the desert and pushed off the cliff. That goes for the Kohanim also. Because he says that the pasuk is mashma that there's one kapara of everybody. Is mashma that there's one kapara that is universal of everybody. That is the Sar Mishtaleach. Reb Shimon argues. Reb Shimon says that the Kohanim don't need the Sar Mishtaleach. The Sar Mishtaleach is only for the Yisraelim, Levim Yisraelim, but the Kohanim, they get a kapara from the bull alone for all of their averos, not just for the Tumah. That's what Shimon Omer. Kishem shadam mason anasa b'fnei mechaper al Yisrael b'tumas mikdash v'kadashav kach dam apam mechaper al Kohanim b'tumas mikdash v'kadashav. Ukishem sheviduyo shel Sar Mishtaleach mechaper al Yisrael b'shar averos kach viduyo shel pan mechaper al Kohanim b'shar averos. The point that Shimon is saying is that an interesting thing. By the goat, not the Sar Mishtaleach, the goat which is brought Lefnei Hashem, the Sar Hashem, that the blood is brought into the Kodesh HaKadoshim, that has to do with Tumah. That's Mechaper and Tumah for Am Yisrael. Over there, the goat belongs to Am Yisrael. The bull belongs to the Kohen, the Kohen Gadol, and all the Kohen, the Gemara said, and the goat belongs to Am Yisrael. They took two goats, forgot the pasuk over there, but it says they take from the Bnei Yisrael, they take 2 goats, one Lazazel, one Lashem. So the goat, there's no video on the goat. Just to recall, when is there video? There's first a video on the bull, and then a second video on the bull, on the same bull, and then there's going to be a video on the goat, the Sarah Mishalech. But there's no video on the goat. That's called the Sarah Lashem. There's no video. So Rabbi Shimon is pointing out that if the goat that goes in, that the blood of the goat goes in the Kodesh HaKodashim is mechaper without a vidui, there's no vidui. So then the bull also could have been mechaper without a vidui, but it's not so. There is a vidui on the bull. So he's saying there's two aspects that are being happening by the Kohanim. The Kohanim get a bull, the blood of the bull that's brought in their name, and also the vidui. So that's what he's going to say, that the Kohanim are getting 2 things. One, Tumas Mikdash HaKodashim, they don't need the vidui of the bull, the same way that the Sorah, the goat, is mechaper on the Tumas Mikdash V'Kadashav of the Bnei Yisrael without a vidui. So the bull, the blood of the bull is also mechaper on the Kohanim even without a vidui. But there is a vidui, so the vidui is going to be for Shar Veris. And then the Kohanim don't need the Sar Mishtaleach. The Jews need the Sar Mishtaleach because they didn't have a kapara on the rest of the Averis. On Tumas Mikdash V'Kadashav. Let's see that inside again. Rabbi Shimon says, just like the blood of the goat, which is done inside, is mechaper on the Bnei Yisrael for Tumas Mikdash V'Kadashav. So too, the blood of the bull, not the vidui, the blood of the bull alone is mechaper on the Kohanim Tumas Mikdash V'Kadashav. And how about the vidui? So the same way the vidui of the Sar Mishlech mechaper on Yisrael by other Averis besides Tumas Mikdash V'Kadashav, so too the vidui of the par is mechaper on the Kohanim for Shar Averis. In other words, the machlokas of Yehuda Shimon is, do the Kohanim need the Sar Mishlech? According to Yehuda, the Kohanim only got a kapara for Tumas Mikdash V'Kadashav with the blood of the bull and its vidui. But so they don't need the Sar Mishlech. They do need the Sar Mishlech for the other Averis. But according to Rabbi Shimon, the Kohanim got a kapara for the Tumas Mikdash V'Kadashav, the blood of the bull alone, and the vidui is another Averis, so they don't need the Sar Mishlech. So all this was a bonus with nothing to do with our subject. But we just did darshan that pasuk over there, the Chipras Mikdash HaKodesh. So now the Gemara is going to darshan it again. The same pasuk. The Gemara is going to darshan again the same pasuk. And now we'll talk about our subject, that there are 3 series. The fact that the pasuk says the Chipras Mikdash HaKodesh, able is highlighted over here. Oh, we'll do as we go along. We'll highlight the Chilam Chaper Es HaKodesh. This is a different pasuk. I didn't realize. The Chilam Chaper Es HaKodesh. Okay. I thought that was the same pasuk as before. It's not the same pasuk. Let's get it over here. V'chila mikaper es hakodesh, and then it says Ohel Moed, and then it says Mizbeach. It's not the same pasuk. I see now. It's not the v'chiper mikdash hakodesh. Different pasuk. Okay, I didn't realize that. So here it says Dan Rabbanan. Back to our subject. V'chila mikaper es hakodesh zel lefnai v'lefnim. That means the kodesh hakadashim. Ohel Moed, that's the heichal. Mizbeach k'mashmo, that's the Mizbeach haktoras. Malami shekula kapar kapar b'fnei atzma. From here you see that there are 3 series that they consider 3 different stages, and that's why we're going to say that even if the blood spilled out in middle, and you have to go back to the beginning, you go back to the beginning of the series. The Mikan Amru really, we can really, the point we just finished saying that there are 3 series is not relevant to what we're going to say now. It's going to come first over here, Gomer Samatanos. Here we're going to continue again by Gomer Samatanos. Over there, the Gemara is going to go back to the point of the 3 series, the 3 Sidrot. But just we'll start, and everything is simple. We learned everything already. Just to get the preview, what we're going to talk about, that if something spilled out in any point of the 3 series, what does he have? He has the Kodesh HaKadashim, Achas L'Mala Sheva L'Mata, the whole issue, and then again in the Heichal, and then again on the Mizbeach. There's also going to be Shvich HaShirayim also on the Mizbeach HaChitzah. So if Rabbi Lezer Shimon say always just continue where you left off. Get a new one and continue where you left off. If it's spilled out, shecht again, whatever you have to do, and again, continue where you left off. But the Tanna Kamma, we'll see as Rabbi Meir, he's going to say go back to the beginning. Go back to the beginning of the series. And that's going to be the point in this passage to say that there are 3 series, three separate kvutzot, and there's the Kodesh HaKadoshim, the Heichal, and the Mizbeach. So now it starts. We can't Amru. In middle of the Kodesh HaKadoshim, the blood spilled out. What do you do? So get out of the dam. We said you maybe have to Ktoros again also. Start again from the beginning. This has nothing to do with the Sidra. This is the beginning, the first one, Kodesh HaKadoshim. It happens to be. You don't have to go back to the beginning. It does continue. So far, it's nothing to do with what we talked about, that there are 3 Sidrot. It doesn't make a difference if this is the first Sidra. But Rabbi Lezer Shimon say, you always continue where you left off. Now comes this point that was what's relevant to us. He finished the Kodesh HaKodashim, and now he's middle of the Heichel. Surely everybody will say that you just continue from here because it's beginning of the second set. If the blood spilled out in the middle of the second series, someplace in the middle of doing it in the Heichel, they have machlokes. Tanakam will say go back to the beginning of that series. Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon say again, just continue where you left off. The next case, if the blood spilled out after you finished the Heichel before you went to the Mizbeach HaKtoros, so then everybody will say just start now the Mizbeach. Start the Mizbeach. There's no machlokes. Everybody says just continue. According to Elazar Rabbi Shimon, surely you continue. Even according to Tanakama, to Rabbi Meir, but it's a new sidra. You finished two series already. And the last case was, and I'm sorry, it spilled out in the middle while you're putting on the Mizbeach, either the Chronos or on the 7 on top of the Mizbeach, and then Nishpach Adam. So then you go back to the beginning of the series, or according to Elazar Rabbi Shimon, you continue. That do you go back to the beginning of that series of the Mizbeach, or do you continue where you left off? So the pasuk that we brought down, I'll just maybe highlight over here also if it helps anything. You have here this case of Gomar Esamatanos Shebifnim, and then again you have Gomar Matanos Shebehechel, and then you have Gomar Matanos Shebemizbeach. That's what the three series are, and everybody will agree you don't have to go further back than that. Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon consistently always say that you just continue where you left off. There's no time to ever say you go back, but according to the Tanakama, Rabbi Meir says you have to go back, so he's never going to go back further than that series. So the first case would be, it was the Kodesh HaKodashim. Once he finished the Kodesh HaKodashim, he doesn't have to go back to there anymore. Once he finished in the Heichel, he doesn't have to go back there anymore. And now the Bryce ends off, Gamar, Matana Shabbat Mizbeach. Finish Bachadam Devi Akol Makvi. That's the point we had yesterday about the Shvich HaShibayim, that everybody would hold, or at least in our Gemara. Yesterday we had a Gemara that maybe the Shibayim is also Makvi of Yehuda, maybe of Nechemia, but our Gemara goes in Lonas an Lo Ikev, like we say in Ezel Mokoman. So if you finished the Matanos on the Mizbeach, even though the blood spilled out before you did Shvich HaShibayim on the Yesod of the Mizbeach HaChitz, so never hold that it's not Makvi because Shibayim Lo Makvi. So we finished the subject, and it's pretty simple. It took a long time to go through all the points, but Mishnah had said this machlokes, it just brings the pasuk. All the Bryce added on was the pasuk that it says the Chila Mechaper Sakodesh, Vesol Moed, Vesol Mizbeach. Those are the three series that the Tanakhama says that you don't have to go back further than that. The Gemara continues. Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan. Ushnei Mikrei Chodorshu. The machlokes, which we spoke about, if you go back to the beginning of that Seder, or you continue where you left off, is going to be darshan from the same pasuk. There's machlokes, Rav Meir against Rav Elazar and Rav Shimon. They learn it from the same pasuk. What does it say? Midam chatas hakipurim achas b'shana. This is pasuk keden the parashas Tzava. Let's put it on a second on the screen. This is the pasuk. Just get it a little bit. וכיפר אהרון על כרם נוסף אחס בשנה, מדם חטס הכיפורים אחס בשנה יכפר עליו לדור ועשיכם, קודש קודשים הוא להשם. Here's talking about then the parashas Tetzaveh, where it talks about the Mizbeach HaKtoros. The pasuk says, make the Mizbeach HaKtoros, the Mizbeach HaPnimi. Interesting that it doesn't say together in parashas Truma with all the Kalim. It says, and after B'dei Kuna, it says about the Mizbeach HaKtoros. So it says, don't use it for Korban Ola, Mincha, and Nesachim, not for libations. But once a year, you do use it for Dam Chatas. וכיפר אהרון על כרם נוסף אחס בשנה. Once a year, Aaron should atone for on the corners of this mizbeach, midam chatas kippurim achas b'shana yichaper alav, from the blood of the chatas of Yom Kippur, or the chatas which is mechaper. Once a year, it should be mechaper. So on the blood on the mizbeach hapnimi, you don't put blood the whole year. Only once a year, the chatas kippurim. So the Gemara is going to say this word. It says achas b'shana. The Gemara is going to dash in some drasha that seems to say that there's going to be a achas one more achas. I want to get the achas over there. That it's going to say that there's an achas. There's a one time. There's going to be a one chatas. And the Gemara is going to say the machlokes says, what does chatas mean? Does it mean the animal or does it mean the smearing? And that's both of them are drushes. It seems the Pashup Pshat is that only from this chatas akivum you do the achas pashana once a year. But the Gemara is saying, does it mean one chatas or does it mean one smearing? So we'll see the Gemara. Both of them who say you go back to the beginning of the series or you continue where you left off is dashing the same pasuk, but they're dashing it differently. It says in the pasuk, "Midam chatasa kipurim achas pashana yichaper Allah." But Meir Savar chatas achas amati lach v'lo shtei chatas, one animal. If you're going to continue where you left off, that means that let's say achas v'achas, achas v'shtayim, achas v'shalosh, and then the blood spilled. And you can take another animal and you're going to continue where you left off. You can do achas v'arba, achas v'chamesh. That means that the 7 sprinklings was half of one animal, half of another animal. It means you did 2 animals. But the pasuk says chatas achas. The Gemara is dashing, Rabbi is dashing, that means only one animal. You can't do the sprinklings from 2 animals. 1 chatas and not 2 chatos. The word chitoy means the smearing of the key. And he says only one time. What does it mean to say? Because if you did, let's say 3 sprinklings, achas v'shtayim, achas v'arba, achas v'shtayim, achas v'shalosh, and then you're going to do it again. According to Rabbi, you do it again. He says don't use 2 animals. It shouldn't be half and half. It should be, so you have to get another animal, of course, but you're going to start again. If you start again, so then Rabbi Elazar Shimon say that means you did it two times. The first 3 sprinklings, let's say, you did 2 times. You did it 3 times, 1, 2, 3. Then you come back and you do again 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That means that the first 3 were done twice. And that's what the pasuk says. Only do it once, don't do it twice. So 2 ways how to read the pasuk. If the pasuk is saying use only 1 animal, don't use 2 animals the first half and the second half. And the other way to dash is the pasuk only sprinkle 1 time, don't do 2 sprinklings of the same thing. So that was machlokes between Rabbi Elazar Shimon and Rabbi Yochanan says both of them dash from the same pasuk. Tomorrow now goes on a tangent, not a tangent, but another subject. For the next subject, it would be nice to see Parshas Metzora. That's going to be the rest of the subject today. So let's put on the screen the psukim in Parshas Metzora. First, just to learn in general what the pasuk is talking about. This is talking about the process of the. If you want to take a Parshas Metzora, if you want to just read, if you want to just listen to it, either way. So the pasuk talks about the process of the Metzora becoming Torah after the Tzuras went away. So Parshas Metzora says what he's supposed to do. So first it talks about within the first 7 days, but now I just put on the screen from Pasuk Yud. This is Perek 14, Parshas Metzora, and Pasuk Yud until about Pasuk 20, 10 psukim. Just says the process, what he does in the Beis Hamikdash on the 8th day. So it says on this 8th day, I'll just read the psukim, and then we'll see the Drasha that's to get to us, just to get a little background of what we're talking about. It says on the 8th day, they should take 2 sheep and 1 female sheep within a year, and also 3 asronim of solas mincha blula b'shemen, the log echad shomen. Besides the animals and also the solas, which is the meal, also he takes a log of sham. Log is approximately 1/3 of a liter, just to get an idea. Takes a log shomen. Then it says the Kohen takes this man, the Metzora, and he brings it before Hashem, and the Kohen takes the sheep and he brings it for a korban Hashem, and he takes the log shomen and he lifts them up. He lifts them up, he waves them, the sheep and the oil. Then it says Pasuk 13, he slaughters the sheep in the same way as a korban chatas, because the korban Hashem is similar to a korban chatas. Then Pasuk 14, the Kohen should take from the blood of the korban Hashem, and the Kohen should put it on the earlobe and on the right earlobe of the Metzora, and on his right thumb, and on his right big toe, from the blood. That's in red for the blood. And then it says he takes the log shaman and he pours it onto his own left hand, and he pours takes his right finger and dips it into the oil in his left hand, and he sprinkles it before Hashem 7 times from the oil. Then it says from the rest of the oil which is on his hand, he puts on on the ear and on the thumb and on the big toe of the Metzora. And then from the rest of the oil, Pasuk 18, he puts onto the head of the Metzora. And then it says he does the korban chatas and the korban ola. So what did he do over here? Just to zoom out, what did he do? He put from the blood on the ear, thumb, and toe of the Metzora, and then from the oil, first he sprinkled before Hashem 7 times. Some say it was in the Heichal, some say it was out of the Heichal, but he sprinkled towards the Heichal. And then also from the oil, he put also onto the ear and the thumb and the toe of the Metzora, and then also he put the rest of the oil onto the head of the Metzora. So that just was a preview of what the issue of the Metzora is. So the Gemara starts now. Tanya, Amar Rebbe. Rebbe said in the Brisa, Li Chilek Reb Yaakov Belugin. So Rashi, the words, maybe I wouldn't know what the words mean, but he says that Reb Yaakov told me, Rebbe said, Reb Yaakov told me that the log shemen of the Metzora is different. What does it mean different? It's different than over here. By Yom Kippur, we spoke about that if the oil spill, if the blood spilled out, machlokes if he starts from the beginning or if he continues where he left off. And Rabbi Yaakov told me that by the log shaman, by the log of oil, there's no machlokes. It's different. He told me that it's different than Yom Kippur. And Rashi points out that over here it's not going to be a machlokes. Everybody's going to hold that he goes back to the beginning again. If it spilled out in the middle, he started doing Sheva Pamim Lefnei Hashem. It says from the oil he's supposed to sprinkle 7 times. What if he sprinkled a few times and then it spilled out? So everybody holds he starts again. He doesn't take the second log shaman and continue. But there was a kasha from a brisa that says that there is a machlokes. Below is no such machlokes. Vatani, we learned in the brisa, nothing makes us matana shebefnim v'nishpach halog. If some of them, of the 7 sprinklings of the oil of the Metzora, the oil spilled out, he should bring another log shemen and start again. This is like a mayor, but he says farish. He doesn't start again. He continues where he left off. So it says farish that they argue by the case of the oil of the Metzora also that he continues where he left off. If it's spilled out after you finished all of those 7 sprinklings in the hechal, and then he's ready to do on the ear and on the bahonos the thumbs of the kohen of the Metzora, so then he doesn't have to go back to the first seder. Same as our Mishnah, you don't go back to the seder before, just continue now the second seder. Nasan mixas matana shebahonos v'nishpach halog yavi lo gachav yaschol betchila matana shebahonos. Rav Shimon omrim avak mishabasiku masko. What if he spilled the oil spilled out in the middle while he was doing on the ear and the thumb? It spilled out, so he has to start again from this seder. According to Rav Meir, according to Rav Shimon, continue where he left off. If he already did, let's say, he did the ear and the thumb, he didn't yet do the big toe, so then just bring the oil and just continue by the toe. It says favorites that he argues over here also that you don't say you go back to the beginning like Rav Meir. This is a side point that once he finished the seder of the bahonos, even though he didn't yet put on the head of the Metzora, finish bachalot, just like we said before, as far as shficha shirayim, let's say here also they say that even though they should have put the oil on the head of the Metzora, that's not ma'akev b'diavad. But if it's spilled out, you don't have to do anything. It's not ma'akev. The Gemara is going to talk about this in a couple of lines, but what we want to say is that this Rashi says b'ferish that you don't say everyone's masking over here. Like Rabbi Yaakov Belugin, Rabbi Yaakov told me to hear it's different. Everybody agrees. You go back to the beginning of each seder. It's not true. Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Shimon say that here also, if it's spilled out in the middle, you just continue where you left off. So what are you telling me that Rabbi Yaakov says that log is different? The Gemara says you're right. You have to change the gersa. Ema. So edit this statement. Before when it said Li Chilek Rabbi Yaakov Belugin, no, Li Shana Rabbi Yaakov Belugin, which means that he taught me the same way. That it's the same thing as before. So we made a mistake. We misquoted Rabbi Yaakov. He meant to say that the same way there's a machlokus, Rabbi Elazar and Shimon say that you continue wherever you left off, even in the middle of the seder. Also by the logo of the Metzora, also you continue where you left off. The Gemara has a side point. I mean, the one point that I said a second ago, that the fact that it said that with the Eved, if he didn't put any of the oil on the head of the Metzora, that it's not ma'akev. So the Gemara wants to talk about that for 2 lines. We just finished learning, but then that it's not ma'akev if you didn't put the oil on the head of the Metzora. My time, why should it not be ma'akev? The pasuk calls it nosa. You see the pasuk over there? That's the pasuk. Pasuk 18. It says It says here that it's the leftover. Is the reason why you say that it's not ma'akev b'diavad is because it only calls it a shirayim? You call it like leftovers. Is that a reason why it's not ma'akev? The Gemara says no. Of El Mayatav on Aseres Ben Mincha, Achinami Delo Ma'akvi. The word nosar it uses by Korb Mincha over there, and also the same word nosar. And over there we see that it is ma'akev. Rashi says that if part of the shirayim of the mincha got missing before you did the Torah of the Kometz, you're not allowed to do the Torah of the Kometz. So you see that the word noser doesn't necessarily mean that it's not makeh. The more answer, Shana Yasam, the Ksiv Umiyeser Van Noser. So on the chart, if you just see plus 617, even the oil that's put on the ear and thumb and toe of the Mitzvah also says the word Miyeser. So it says here Miyeser, then it says, and then the leftover of that, it's called the leftover of the leftovers. So the right, if it only has one time the word Yeser, it is makeh, as you see over here also, that the Tanuch Ozen is makeh. But here by the oil that goes on the head, it's called the Noser of the Yeser, it's called Shiraim Sheva Shiraim, that's not makeh. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, bottom line, or the top line of the next page. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Hasham Mitzvah Sheshachto Shelo Lishmo. So here, this is the gersa here is a little bit difficult. Rashi goes with the gersa that we have, but if it's okay, I'd like to change and do the gersa that Tosfos says. Tosfos says over here, Hasham Mitzvah Shenishpach Damo. If you have a Gemara, whoever has a Gemara, and Tosfos is the first narrow line. Gersa Rabbeinu Chananel, Hasham Mitzvah Shenishpach Damo Kodem Matan Bahonos. Instead of talking about a Mitzvah Sheshachto Shelo Lishmo. Our gersa, Rashi has our gersa, but it's a bit difficult. An easier gersa would be the Tosfos' gersa, so if that's okay if we learn that. Hasham Mitzvah, that the blood spilled out before he put it onto the, whatever he's supposed to do with the blood. We said the Dam Mitzvah, the blood of the blood. Till now we spoke about the oil that goes together with the korban. But as we recall, right over there, just to put on the chart again, just to show the two issues, the red and the yellow. That possibly before he does with the oil, he does with the blood. The blood of the korban nashim he puts onto the ear and the thumb and the toe of the mitzvah. So now we're talking about the blood. Before we spoke about the oil, and we said the machlokis. If you go back, if it's spilled out in the middle, do you go back to the beginning? Do you continue? We said it's a machlokis. The same machlokis is by Yom Kippur, as machlokis by the oil of the mitzvah also. Now we're talking about the blood of the korban nashim of the mitzvah. But over there, if it's spilled out in the middle, do you go back to the beginning? Do you continue where you left off? So that's what Tosfos says the Gemara is talking about. According to Rashi, it's talking about an asham that he did shalol lishmo, like a whole different issue. So it's simpler to go with Tosfos that the issue is that the blood of the korban asham is spilled out in the middle. So what happens here? Asham mitzvah shenishpach dam v'kodem matan bonos. Banu the machlokes of Meir Reb Shimon. It's also going to be dependent on machlokes of Meir Reb Shimon. But here it's going to be a little bit different. Till now, what do we say? Machlokes was, do you go back to the beginning or do you continue where you left off? Here the Gemara is going to say there's a pasuk that Rashi brings down. The Gemara is going to say it says keves achad Hasham. Here's Rashi keves achad Hasham. It's about 20 lines into Rashi. The first one on the line is keves achad Hasham. Hasham echad amati lecha v'lo shtei Hasham. So you can't take two animals. Here it's going to be a given that you can't use two animals. It means before when we say if you continue where you left off. Rabbi Shimon said the whole time, continue where you left off. It comes out that the first couple of matanos were from one animal, and the second matanos were the second animal. So before we had a question, when it says the word chatas achas b'shana, doesn't mean chatas achas, doesn't mean chitu yachad. But here it says you have to have one animal. So the Gemara is going to say, according to Rav Meir, it says that if it's spilled out in the middle, so start again. Here also you can start again. You can start again, and all of the matanos are going to be from one animal. It's not going to be divided between two animals. The first ones don't count, and you take another animal, you bring another korban nashim, and then all of the matanos, like it says on the ear, on the thumb, on the toe, it's going to be from the same animal. But according to Reb Shimon, that till now they said in other cases of Yom Kippur and by the oil, they say continue where you left off. But over here, there's no eights of him. It's not like until now that bring another one, and here. It says only one animal. So here they're also asking that you can't continue bring another animal or continue where you left off. And it comes out that the blood that's going to be on his ear was from one animal. The blood on his stomach is going to be from a different animal. It says has to be only one. What are you going to do? Say start again. They can't start again. They can't take another animal and start again because they say that whatever you did does count. So if you did on the ear, it's already done. You can't do it again. It's already done. So there's going to be a case of a mitzvah that has no way to become Torah. It's a fascinating concept. There's a mitzvah who's tameh, and usually there's a process how to make him Torah, but he can't become Torah. Ain't no takana. The Gemara agrees with that according to Reb Shimon, there's no takana. And again, the reason is because whatever was done was done. According to Rabbi, whatever was done was not done. It's not considered anything. Start again. But according to Rabbi Shimon, whatever was done was done. And here, Pasuk says, you can't do it out of two animals. You can't continue with a new animal and continue where you left off. But the Gemara is going to question according to Rav Meir. According to Rav Meir, you're saying that you could start again, and that the Gemara is not so sure about that. On the sixth line, also besides saying Kevesechad Hashem, it also says also you should make it. And according to that understanding, only one animal. So you can't take another animal. It means the first animal that you shechted for it was kosher animal. It wasn't shalom lishma. It was a kosher animal, and you started doing the matana, let's say, on the ear, and then the blood spilled out. So you can't take another one. Even according to Rav Meir, the Gemara thinks that the word also means that even according to Rav Meir, there's no AIDS anymore. Kasha, and Rav Chisda holds that as a kasha. Rav Yochanan doesn't think so, but Rav Chisda says that word also means only one, and you can't take another animal according to anybody. And Mela, according to nobody, will there be a takan. This mitzvah is lost. If they have to be very, very careful. If when they're doing the dam washam, they have to be very careful that the blood shouldn't spill out, because if the blood spills out, according to Blazen Rav Shimon, there's no way for this mitzvah ever to become Torah again. And according to Rav Meir, the most question, even according to Rav Meir, maybe not. Tani kavasa de Rav Yochanan. Before we have a rice like Rav Yochanan that says at least according to somebody there is an Eitzah. Means according to Rav Chisda, according to nobody is there an Eitzah. Not Rav Meir and not Rav Blazen Rav Shimon. According to Rav Yochanan, only Rav Blazen Rav Shimon says there's no Eitzah, but according to Rav Meir there is an Eitzah for him to bring another korban. He has a brisa that says like Rav Yochanan. Rashi's happy with his gersa because it means that he says that's the case. Shalom l'shmo. But we're going to say that we're not changing the gersa over here, but we're going to focus on the second case of the brisa. The case of shalom l'shmo is not our subject. But shalom l'shmo, he didn't use the blood to put onto the ear and thumbs of the metzora. It's a good korban. It's a kosher korban, but the korban is a kosher korban, so you continue using it as a korban, but you need another korban for him to become tohar. The metzora, who is in the middle of this process to become tohar, so this one doesn't count. He didn't use it for the bonus, so it doesn't count. What do? It says get another rasham. Isn't that prepared like a Yochanan? At least according to Rav Meir. According to Rav Shimon, also the brisa cannot read because it won't be true according to them because you can't. You can't do half and half. Maybe in a case would be that you didn't start at all, but it says that you don't say also is only one animal. Even though you did an animal, you could do another one. Isn't it perish like a Yochanan that says doesn't dash in this word also? Rav Chisda dash in also is only one, and you can't do a second time. Here it says you do a second time. Just because it says you need doesn't always means that you have an eitzah. You need. But if there's no way to do it, there's no way to do it. If it would say ain't sarach, it means he's fine, no problem. But sarach ashamacher, he needs another one. Then he says, okay, I need another one. So give me. No, we can't give you. You have that. You have the concept sometimes. You need a certain form. So give me the form. We don't have a form. So here would be such a case that he says you need another rasham. So he says, give me another rasham. No, we can't give another rasham. So even though it says the word sarach, don't think that it means that he has the way to use it. It means he needs it, but he can't get it. Now the Gemara is going to bring it. Now we're going on a side, mamash on a tangent for about 10 lines. That the Gemara is impressed with this concept that it could say you need, and not necessarily does it mean that you can do it. You need it, but if you can't do it, you can't do it. And the Gemara goes on a side issue. Very interesting. If whatever we're going to learn now is not connected to what we learned till now, it's an issue on its own. The Tani Tana Takana, there's a Tana says such a word sarich, and it means if you can't do it, the word sarich sounds like you need it and you could do it. Yes, I'll find you another place. No shaykhis to us. I'll find you another place where it says the word sarich and it doesn't mean that you can do it. You need it, but you can't do it. Here's the case. For Tanya, Nazir Memora, a Nazir that has no hair. Part of the process of a Nazir, when he becomes Torah, is to cut his hair. He can't cut his hair while he's a Nazir, and then in the process of getting out of his Nazirus, he cuts his hair. The Gilah Saro Pesach Al Moed. What if he has no hair? Beishamai Omrim Sarich Avaras Tar. He needs this is the word. Sorry, look at this word. Sarich. He needs that he should pass the razor over his hair. He doesn't have any hair. So the Gemara is going to say at this point, the Gemara maybe say differently, but here the Gemara says that he needs, and maybe that means he needs and he can't do it. He needs to take a haircut. He says, I don't have any hair. So you need to take a haircut. So what do those words mean? So the Gemara is going to understand that it means you need, in order to become tohar out of your nazirus, to become a mutter out of your nazirus, you need to take a haircut. And he says, okay, so you can't get out of your nazirus. That's what the Gemara is going to bring out of this brisa. Tzarich havaras tar. Beiselam remains tzarich havaras tar. He doesn't need it. It's fine. He doesn't need it. That was the brisa. To Amar Rabbi Avina expounded on this brisa. Beishamai says you need. When a Beishamai says he needs a haircut, that means, and he can't take a haircut, so he can't get out of his nazirus. So that's what the Gemara brought a support before when it said tzarich ashamacher. Here it said tzarich ashamacher. Here it says Tzarich Havara Star. Just like when Beishamai says Tzarich Havara Star, it means that he can't. He needs, but he can't. So we're not bothered. And when it says before Tzarich Hashemach, it also can mean that he can't. Don't force me to say that Tzarich Hashemach means that he could bring it. Not necessarily. I find other places where you see that the word Tzarich doesn't mean that he could do it. But the Gemara does point out that not everybody agrees that's Pshat Beishamai. But Pligat Rabbi Pedas. This Rabbi Avina, who said that Beishamai says Tzarich means and he can't, that argues in Rabbi Pedas, because Rabbi Pedas understood Beishamai says Tzarich Havara Star means that even though he has no hair, take a razor and pass it over his bald head. Even though he doesn't have any hair, that's also called a haircut. And then, if that's the pshat, so then Beishamai doesn't say Tzarich ve'ein lo takana. When Beishamai said the word Tzarich, he means it, and therefore it wouldn't be a support to say Rav Chisda to explain Tzarich Hashemacher means and he cannot bring it. The word Tzarich means he could do it. So that's what the Gemara says. Pligat Rabbi Pedas. This understanding of Beishamai that says Tzarich means ein lo takana argues in Rabbi Pedas. Dam Rabbi Pedas, Beishamai Rabbi Elazar, Amud Rabbi Pedas said that Beishamai and Rabbi Elazar have the same way of thinking in a certain aspect. Beishamai held Amaran. Beishamai we just said that a bald Nazir has needs Havara Star, needs to take a haircut. And Rabbi Elazar, the Tanya or the Tanan, Ein lo bo in yad, bo in regel, ein lo tara lamis. Rabbi Elazar, Omer no slam v'komo v'yotzei. What if Mitzorah doesn't have a thumb? We said that part of the process of becoming Torah is to put the blood or the oil on his thumb. What if he doesn't have a thumb? His thumb was cut off, so he has no thumb. So could he ever get out of it? So the Tanna Kama says, Ein lo tara lamis. There's no way to get out of the being of Mitzorah. Rabbi Elazar says, no slam v'komo v'yotzei. Put it on the place where the thumb is supposed to be. It's good enough. So the Gemara says, Rabbi Pedas holds that taking a haircut with no hair is similar to putting the blood on the place of the thumb where there's no thumb. So what do you see? That Rabbi Pedas understood that Beishamai says that he needs Havara Star. He pass a razor over his head means he actually do it. Not that he needs it and he can't do it. He needs it and he do it. And the Bryce ends off, Rabbi Shimon Omer, Nasan al-Shem shal small yotza, the one who has no right thumb, so put on the left thumb. That's but it's okay. That's not our subject. Just wanted to find that Rabbi Elazar says that you put on the place where the thumb should be, and Beishamai might mean the same thing, that you put it on the place where the hair should be. So that was all a side subject. Tomorrow has one more subject to finish off the subject. Tomorrow has one more issue about the Mitzorah. It's not our subject, but once we're talking about it, the Gemara tells us about the korban of the Mitzorah. Just to see the pasuk again, it says it means a korban hasham. What does it say? That's the pasuk over there. It says that it means a korban hasham. Shech the keves, the same place we shech the korban chatas, because it's like a korban hash. It's like a hasham is like a chatas. Take the blood and put it on the ear, the thumb, and the toe of the Mitzorah. The Gemara knows that a korban hasham every korban hasham always has also putting blood on the mizbeach. The pasuk doesn't talk about that, but the Gemara understands that it's a regular korban hasham. A regular korban hasham is also supposed to put blood on the mizbeach. And here it says you put the blood on the Mitzorah. So the Gemara is going to say you do both.
Rebbe?
Yes.
I just don't understand Maskana. We had 3 shitas about what a person who lacks the equipment, he doesn't have a bow and yad, bow and regel does. What do we do there? What goes on?
What do we?
You have many shots like that, like arba minim, tefillin, v'chule.
Here it says, I'm just looking at the Gemara that it has the superscript of the Rambam by the first opinion. Yes, it can't do anything. Over here it says that it seems the halacha is going to be like the Chachamim that say that there's no eitzah. If someone doesn't have a left hand, can he put on tefillin? On the other hand, so I don't know. Here it would seem that here it seems by the case of the Mitzorah, we paskin elo taro lamis. There's no way to get out of it. So you're saying that a person who has no left hand to get rid of tefillin, no purpose, no reason to put the tefillin on the right hand. That's not his left hand.
There's so many war injuries in Israel. We have so many people. My own father was missing part of a leg from a traffic accident. So it's I just want it's shkichi.
I don't know. Here it seems that the halach is that he can't get out of it. He can't get the tara. The other choice is what to put on the place, even if by tefillin you can't do that, right? Tefillin, you can't put the tefillin on the place with no hand. It's not going to go on anything. Here, just put it on the part. That's one. I don't know. And the other opinion was to do it on the left hand. I don't know what to say. You should call for that Torah. So now the Gemara is going into the regular process of a korban asham of the Mitzvah. Tan Rabbanan. How do you receive the blood of the korban asham? Do you receive it in a kli like all kinds of a korban asham? Tamalam of a nasan. It says take from the blood and put it onto the ear and the thumb. How does the Kohen do that with his finger? Just like when he puts the blood onto the Mitzvah, the Kohen's using his finger, his hand. So too, when he receives the blood, it's also received in his hand. So that's a chiddush. You don't find that anyplace else. That he receives the blood, it comes out of the animal, he receives it in his hand. And then he takes that blood and he puts with his finger onto the Mitzvah's ear, thumb, and toe. And you might think that the blood which goes on the Mizbeach also is going to be received in the hand of the Kohen, because it's partial to the Gemara that for sure the blood goes onto the Mizbeach also. Talmud Lomar, no, the pasuk says Kika Hadasa Shamhu. The pasuk we just read says that the korban asham is like a korban chatas, and the korban chatas, the regular korban, of course, the blood is received in a kli. Ma chatas tuna kli, afasham tuna kli. That you surely have to receive the blood in the kli. Fascinating thing that the korban asham of the Mitzvah, two kohanim have to receive the blood. One person is receiving the blood in his hand, he catches the blood in his hand, and one kohen is receiving the blood in the kli, different part of the blood. The one who receives the blood in the kli goes to the mizbeach to do the matanos of the blood onto the mizbeach. And the kohen who receives the blood in his hand, he goes to the Mitzvah to put the matanos onto his ear, thumb, and toe. That's the end of the Gemara, and we'll just do a sikkum, just to review what we learned, a lot of different subjects. The first one was to say that even goes back to Sam Muhammad Beis, even Rabbi Yehuda that says that it's only marking things that are Kodesh HaKadoshim, but the Chafinas Ketores and the Shchitas HaSoyer, even though it's outside, but it's also Tzorach Pnim Kippanim, and also the order is market. And even though the Mishnah doesn't sound like that, it just says do the blood. You have to understand, if you do the blood, you have to shecht again. If you have to shecht, you have to do Chafinas HaKetores again. And also by the Kodesh HaKadoshim that it says, by the Kodesh, by the blood of the goat and the bull, that it's mashma that if you did the wrong order, just continue with the goat of the blood of the goat. That only means if you're in the heichal. But if it was in the Kodesh HaKadoshim and it means he shechted the goat before the matanas of the bull, then for sure you have to shecht another goat again because the Seder is marking. After that, we got a bonus about this brisa, which has nothing to do with us. And I see now that the pasuk also is not our pasuk. I didn't realize that. That issue is if the kohanim also need the sar mishtalech. The sar mishtalech is for the various of Bnei Yisrael. Doesn't mean the kohanim also. So Rabbi Yehuda says yes, and even though they had a bull in their name, that was only for Tumas Mitzvah Kadasha. But for the other various that they did, they need also the Sar Mishalech. Rabbi Shimon says no, that the Kohanim got a kapara from the blood of the bull, the same way the Israelim got from the blood of the soyer, Lashem, without the Vida. The fact that there's a Vida also, that's for the rest of the various, and they don't need the Sar Mishalech. Sar Mishalech is only for the rest of Am Yisrael, not for the Kohanim. Back to our pasuk, our subject that according to Rabbi Shimon, you continue wherever you left off. If the blood's from out in the middle, just continue. No difference if it's the middle of the series, the end of the series, or no difference. Always continue where you left off. Rav Meir Tanakama, he says that you have to go back to the beginning, but not to the beginning of everything, to the beginning of that series. And you have this pasuk to say that there's 3 different series, and you go back to the beginning of that series. After that, the Gemara brought the drasha, the machlokes between an our Mishnah, machlokes. If you go back to the beginning of that series, or you continue where you left off, it says midam chatas kipurim achas ba'achas. So do you say that chatas achas, one animal, not 2 animals? If you're going to do half and half, you're going to continue where you left off. So you use 2 animals. Or do you say chitu yechad, then you can't do the same chitu 2 times? So do everything. So to continue where you left off. Machlokes hadash in the pasuk. After that, the Gemara brought that even though the Gemara taught differently, the Gemara brings a brisa that by the Mitzorah, that is also different sidrot of the oil that is put onto the Shabbat Matanos Lefnei Hashem, and then on the ear, the thumb and the toe of the Mitzorah. Also, is there an issue about continuing where we left off? First, the Gemara taught no. Everybody's going to agree that you start again from the beginning. But the Gemara says no. Bryce says very according to Hashem, you left off. You continue where you left off. And the Gemara says okay. If the Bryce says so, so you're right. The Agav pointed out that the last thing that it says, he puts the rest of the oil onto the head of the Mitzorah. That's not market with Yevid because it says two Lashonis, the leftover of the leftover. No sir and yes sir, so that's not market. If you didn't do it at all, it's not market. Then it talked about, according to our Girsa, the Girsa Ben Chananel, Asham Mitzorah, the blood of the Mitzorah, the blood of the Asham of the Mitzorah, if it's spilled out, what do you do then? So the more comes out that according to Rabbi Shimon, there's no answer. Because here it says Kevas Sachas Hasham, only once, so you can't do it half and half. You can't do continue where left off. In the beginning of the Matanas was from one animal. It says it fares only once. So there's no way so this Mitzorah cannot get out of it. So I have to be very careful when he's taking the dam asham of the Mitzorah, that the Kohen who's holding it in his hand, he should make sure it doesn't spill it, because if so, the Mitzorah is lost. He never could become Torah. The Gemara is even a question according to Rabbi Meir that says usually you can start from the beginning again. Maybe it says also and you won't be able to. That's Machlokes. Rabbi Yochanan says you could. Rav Chisda said that you can't. And the Gemara had a brayso that says that Tzorah asham macher. Doesn't that mean sound like you could do it? So the word got out of it saying even that not necessarily. It could be that the word you have to, you need it. You need it doesn't mean that you can get it. It could be you need it, you can't get it. And the Gemara brought a raya that according to some, at least not everybody, but some hold it. When the Shammai says by a bald Nazir that he says Tzorich Havaras Tar, does that mean that he needs it and he can't do it, so he's never going to be able to get out of his Isser Nazir? Some hold like that. If so, if Chisda will say, I find the case where it says Tzorich and it means he can't do it. But even over there, also some say it doesn't mean that. Some say that it means that he's supposed to put a razor over his head, even though he's bald, just to do that thing of putting a razor over his head where the hair should have been. And similarly, you find such a thing that there is an opinion that says if someone doesn't have a thumb, the Masorah doesn't have a thumb, how's he going to put the blood on the thumb? Some say it's not going to wait, but some say you can put it on the place where the thumb should have been. Some say put it on the left thumb, but there is such an opinion that says put on the place where it should have been. Maybe the Shammai also meant like that, to take the razor over his head where the hair should have been. If so, there'd be no raya to support Rav Chisda that says that Sarah could mean you need it, but you don't have it. So we left that as machlokes, according to Rabbi Shimon, according to Rabbi Meir, according to Rabbi Shimon, surely there's no answer for this Masorah that the blood spilled out in the middle. But according to Rabbi Meir, machlokes, if he could, take another korban asham and start from the beginning again. And the brayso just ended up. The Gemara brought that brayso then just to explain that by korban asham of the Mitzorah is very unique. That besides putting the blood on the mizbeach, also there's blood put onto the Mitzorah on his ear, thumb, and toe, and the receiving the blood is that's going to go onto the Mitzorah is received in the Kohen's hand, not in the kli. So when they shech the asham of the Mitzorah, there are two Kohanim over there. One is going to receive the blood in the kli, and that blood is going to go onto the mizbeach, and the other Kohen is going to receive the blood in his hand, and that blood is going to go onto the Mitzorah. Yeshikach, everybody. Thank you. Motzei Shabbos 9:15. Thank you.